3 people are dead following a disturbing tragedy in California's Simi Valley, where a wealthy doctor and his wife were gunned down by their own son. 63-year-old radiologist Eric Cordes and 66-year-old Vicky Cordes were found dead in the garage of their $1.3 million home, which is located in a community that sees just 1 homicide on average per year. The couple had both been shot multiple times by their son, 37-year-old Keith Cordes, who fled the scene in his vehicle and drove 65 miles to Chino. Keith then set the car on fire, and by the time he was found dead inside the vehicle from a gunshot wound, he was burned beyond recognition. The San Bernardino County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed on Tuesday that the remains belonged to Keith, who reportedly lived in Kentucky. Authorities declined to release any details about an alleged motive or the circumstances surrounding the double homicide, citing the ongoing nature of the investigation. Number 19. Zachery Ty Bryan. Former child star Zachery Ty Bryan was recently arrested for the 6th time in 5 years following a heated argument with his fiancée, Johnny Faye Cartwright. According to news reports from last week, the couple were driving when the disagreement broke out. 44-year-old Bryan exited his pickup truck and started walking down the road, at which point 37-year-old Cartwright allegedly tried running him over. He managed to avoid getting hit, but Cartwright lost control of the vehicle and wound up in a ditch, prompting a police response to the scene. No one was harmed, but deputies reportedly observed signs of intoxication among both parties, who had all 3 of their young children with them. Cartwright was charged with DUI, reckless driving and reckless endangerment, while Bryan was booked into custody for violating a protective order banning him and Cartwright from having contact with one another. The order was put in place as part of a plea deal that Bryan took in a strangulation case in 2021, but all 3 of his children with Cartwright have been born in the years since. Bryan is currently being held without bail, and the kids have been placed in the care of a relative. Number 18. James Rizzo. New York University student Amelia Lewis was walking to class last Monday morning when a crazed stranger rushed up to her from behind and attacked her in broad daylight. The unprovoked attack took place at around 9:30 a.m. and was captured on video, which showed the assailant grabbing 20-year-old Lewis by the hair and knocking her to the ground. Bystanders rushed to Lewis's aid while her attacker, 45-year-old James Rizzo, fled on foot. Police soon caught up to Rizzo, who's homeless and has a lengthy history of attacking unsuspecting female victims. Rizzo has at least 16 prior arrests on his record, including a murder rap for the late 90s and past cases of randomly assaulting women. He's currently charged with forcible touching, persistent sexual abuse, and assault. In the meantime, Lewis has taken to social media with her thoughts on the matter, including that something urgently needs to be done about crime in the Big Apple. Number 17. Karen Sofia Quiroz Ramirez. A Colombian influencer who was known for her death-defying motorcycle stunts lost her life in a horrific crash on Wednesday. Known to her followers as Bike Girl, 25-year-old Karen Sofia Quiroz Ramirez was attempting to ride her motorcycle between 2 vehicles near Florida Blanca when she lost control of the bike and struck one of the cars. She was then hit by a truck on the other side of her and fell beneath its wheels. Ramirez was pronounced dead at the scene, and investigators are currently working to determine the cause of the fatal crash. Just hours prior to the accident, Ramirez had said in a social media post that she hoped she'd be able to see because she was going to be riding without her glasses. Whether or not any of the other motorists involved in the collision will be charged remains to be determined. Number 16. Juvenile jealousy. In what could perhaps be best described as an extreme case of misguided envy, a woman murdered her young niece during a wedding in northern India last Monday because she thought the child looked prettier than her. The victim, Bille, vanished during the event in Panipat, prompting a family-organized search. About an hour later, Bille's grandmother, Omwati, found her unresponsive in a storage room with her head submerged in water. She was rushed to the hospital where she was pronounced dead, and her paternal aunt, Poonam, admitted to killing the child while the rest of the guests were outside. According to reports, Poonam told police that she didn't want anyone at the wedding to look more beautiful than her. She said she was irritated by beautiful girls and reportedly confessed to murdering an additional 3 children over a 3-year period, including her own son and another niece, who were killed in 2023. Poonam told investigators that she had also killed a little girl in a nearby village because the victim was prettier than her. The deaths had previously been classified as accidental, and now that the family knows about Poonam's involvement, they believe she was possessed and hearing voices when she committed the crimes. Number 15. Daniel Stearns. A Florida man who killed the mother of 2 after meeting the victim on a dating app has been sentenced to life in prison. The punishment against 35-year-old Daniel Stearns was handed down on Thursday after he was found guilty of second-degree murder, evidence tampering, and abuse of a dead body in October. The victim, 44-year-old Nancy Howery, was reported missing in February of 2023 after she failed to pick her kids up from school. She had been planning to meet with Stearns that day in Palm Bay, where her burned and dismembered remains were found scattered throughout a remote area. Further investigation revealed that Stearns had shot Howery in the head because he was angry that she wouldn't date him exclusively. Evidence also indicated that Stearns had planned the killing ahead of time before carrying it out in a cold and calculated fashion. He could have faced as little as 22 years behind bars, but the judge granted the prosecution's request for a lifelong sentence without the possibility of parole, along with 2 concurrent 22-year terms. Number 14. Tamara Hamby. Apparently desperate to stop her disabled adult daughter from talking to men online, an Arkansas woman resorted to the highly unconventional method of staging the girl's kidnapping in an attempt to teach her the meaning of stranger danger. The 22-year-old young woman had reportedly fallen victim to a scammer but believed she was talking to country singer Luke Bryan and refused to stop talking to him despite the efforts of her mother, 59-year-old Tamara Tammy Hamby, to prevent them from communicating. At her wits' end, Hamby recruited the help of her daughter's home caregiver, Shannon Childers, who summoned the assistance of 2 friends, David Quach and Nico Austria, went to the home and offered to introduce the young woman to Luke Bryan, and she went with them willingly. The men tied her to a tree, but she managed to free herself and ran to a nearby home where someone called 911. All 4 suspects are free on bail and are facing 1 count of endangering an incompetent person, while Tammy Hamby faces an additional count of conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Number 13. Caitlin Kelly. A hit-and-run driver has been ordered to serve 3 years behind bars in Rhode Island for killing an 85-year-old woman back in October of 2023. The elderly victim was alert when emergency responders found her at a Providence intersection shortly after 6 o'clock in the morning, but she succumbed to her injuries shortly after being taken to the hospital. Relying on surveillance footage, investigators traced the vehicle involved in the accident to the home of 30-year-old Caitlin Kelly, where they found a car with damage matching the crime scene. Kelly denied any knowledge that she had hit someone, but a search of her text messages revealed that she was very much aware of what had happened. During a court hearing on Tuesday, she pleaded no contest to leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. In addition to imposing a 3-year prison term, the judge suspended her driver's license for 3 years and ordered her to serve 10 years of probation after she finishes her custodial sentence. Number 12. Jehovah Nelson. After making the regrettable decision to hunt down and kill another man, a Minnesota teenager will spend more than a decade repaying his debt to society at a state prison. 24-year-old DeJuan Hemphill was walking down the street with some friends in St. Paul on the evening of November 5th, 2024, when 19-year-old Jehovah Nelson began following the group while wearing a Michael Myers mask. He was accompanied by a second suspect, Kenneth Terry, who was reportedly upset because one of the targets had been talking to the mother of his child. The incident was captured on surveillance video, which showed Nelson shooting Hemphill in the back of the head. While investigating the case, investigators discovered that Nelson had been bragging about the crime on social media. Both suspects were charged in connection with the case and ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Terry is currently awaiting his sentencing hearing, which is scheduled for December 30th, while Nelson was sentenced to 12.5 years during a court hearing last Tuesday. Number 11. Benjamin Visser. Frustrated by his inability to land gainful employment, a jobless Arizona man fatally shot his wife and her co-worker at the Little Caesars restaurant where they worked, in addition to his failure to find work. 27-year-old Benjamin Visser also believed that his wife, 21-year-old Mary Visser, was cheating on him with the second victim, 32-year-old Shaquille Simmons. Emergency responders rushed to the scene in Tempe after Benjamin confessed to shooting the victims during a 911 call. Surveillance footage reportedly showed him opening fire on Simmons as he entered the restaurant, then turning the gun on Mary right after he had just walked her to work. He continued to shoot his wife even after she collapsed, but surrendered to law enforcement without incident. Visser claimed that he had blacked out before the shooting, but admitted that he and Mary had fought earlier that day about money, his lack of a job, and his belief that his wife was cheating on him. Although there's no evidence to suggest that Mary and Simmons were having an affair, he's been charged with 2 counts of murder and remains in custody with bonds set at $2 million. Number 10. Trinity Poague. A former beauty queen has been sentenced to life in prison for murdering her boyfriend's toddler son, little Romeo Jackson Drew Angeles, who stopped breathing one day in January of 2024 while in the care of 18-year-old Georgia Southwestern State University student Trinity Poague. Poague's boyfriend, Julian Williams, rushed his son to the hospital where the little boy was pronounced dead. After efforts to stabilize him were unsuccessful, he had suffered severe injuries that were inflicted within hours of his death, including a brain bleed, a lacerated liver, and a fractured skull. Video evidence indicated that Angeles was fine when his father left to go to Walmart earlier that day, and Poague was the only person with him between then and when he was injured. Prosecutors accused Poague of being jealous of the attention Williams paid to his son and resentful because she wanted her own child. A jury found her guilty of felony murder, aggravated battery, and cruelty to children, and she was sentenced to life behind bars less than an hour after the verdict was handed down. Number 9. Hiram Carrero. A 56-year-old homeless man was sleeping on a New York City subway last Monday morning when a teenager entered the train at Penn Station at 3 a.m. and set him on fire. Later identified as 18-year-old Hiram Carrero, the perpetrator fled before the train doors closed but hung around the station for nearly an hour before leaving. In the meantime, the victim disembarked at the next station with his legs ablaze. Police extinguished the flames and rushed the man to the hospital in critical condition, and Carrero is facing both state and federal charges for his crimes. State prosecutors are accusing him of attempted murder, while federal authorities are pursuing an arson charge. A federal judge released Carrero from custody following his initial hearing, but the district court judge who oversaw his arraignment on the state charges ordered him to be held without bail. Number 8. Gerardo Solorio-Alvarado. 44-year-old Gerardo Solorio-Alvarado was already familiar with the consequences of getting caught smuggling drugs, having previously served nearly 20 years behind bars for trafficking methamphetamine. But the lucrative trade lured him back in, and he's once again facing the possibility of a years-long prison sentence for conspiring to move tens of millions of dollars worth of the drug in the Atlanta area. Investigators seized the massive 1,600-pound haul after following the suspect's movements and finding the meth hidden in a BlackBerry shipment. Solorio-Alvarado was later arrested after trying to sneak out of his Gainesville, Georgia home as law enforcement moved in on him. On Wednesday, federal prosecutors announced charges against Solorio-Alvarado and a second suspect, 36-year-old Nelson Enrique Soto. During a press conference, officials revealed that Solorio-Alvarado was in the United States illegally at the time of his arrest. He's charged with conspiracy and possession with the intent to distribute methamphetamine, which could result in a maximum prison sentence of 15 years in the event of a conviction, while Soto could spend up to a decade behind bars if convicted as charged with possession with the intent to distribute. Number 7. Keith O'Connor. A Florida public official was fired from his job for cashing an employee's $20,000 lottery ticket to spare him from having to pay child support. According to reports, Tampa Code Enforcement Director Keith O'Connor conspired with Aubrey Pierce to get their hands on the winnings, which would have been seized if Pierce had cashed in under his own name. Investigators discovered evidence of the plot while investigating Pierce for allegations of bribery and illegal dumping. Pierce was arrested in August on felony charges of bribery by a public servant, unlawful disposal of hazardous waste, and grand theft. O'Connor was placed on leave the following months, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement shared the findings of its investigation with prosecutors, who declined to pursue charges based on a lack of evidence. The scandal involving O'Connor comes just 3 years after his wife, former Tampa Police Chief Mary O'Connor, went viral for trying to use her position of authority to get Keith out of a ticket. Mary resigned from her position shortly after the story began to circulate, and now her husband is the one at the center of news headlines and out of the job. Number 6. Dominick Sacchetti. The atmosphere was already hectic as Staten Island residents scrambled to do their last-minute holiday shopping on the day before Thanksgiving. But things became even more chaotic when a ShopRite employee set his workplace on fire. 21-year-old Dominick Sacchetti was working at one of the store's locations in Great Kills when he was seen on surveillance video lighting a shelf of paper goods ablaze. A bystander rushed into action, put the blaze out with a fire extinguisher, and luckily, no one was harmed. But the outcome could have been much worse, and the fire caused more than $100,000 worth of damage to the store. Authorities announced charges against Sacchetti on Wednesday, including multiple arson counts, 2 counts of reckless endangerment, and 2 counts of criminal mischief. He remains in custody in lieu of $50,000 cash bail or $100,000 bond, and his motive for starting the fire is unclear. Number 5. Abdimahat Bille Mohamed. just months after walking free thanks to a sweetheart plea deal that spared him from prison time for attacking 2 women in Hennepin County, Minnesota. 28-year-old Abdimahat Bille Mohamed has struck again. His first arrest came last year after he strangled and forced himself on a woman he had met on Snapchat. Mohamed's DNA was taken in accordance with standard protocol and turned up as a match to a previous attack on a teenager who was brutally assaulted at gunpoint. He received a 3-year state prison sentence for the assault, sparing him from any actual time behind bars. On Wednesday, prosecutors announced a new batch of charges against Mohamed, who's accused of holding a woman captive at a hotel for several days. The victim eventually escaped by jumping out of his car and flagged down a passing motorist for help. Mohamed is being held without bail on a charge and is due back in court on New Year's Eve. Number 4. Gabriel Williams and Kimahri Blevins. The search for a missing Florida teen came to a devastating end last Tuesday when a civilian discovered her murdered body in a wooded area in Santa Rosa County. Danica Troy had been shot and set on fire, and 2 suspects have been charged with her murder thanks to help from a witness who came forward with key information. The tipster implicated teenagers Gabriel Williams and Kimahri Blevins in the crime, telling law enforcement that the pair had plotted to kill Troy after she made them feel disrespected on social media. Blevins answered a few basic questions but requested an attorney when police confronted him about Troy's death. Investigators also spoke to Williams, who said that Troy had called him worthless and a gangbanger. Both boys were arrested on suspicion of premeditated first-degree murder and remain held without bond at the Santa Rosa Juvenile Detention Center. Number 3. Bryce Campbell. Minnesota's oldest vacation lodge went up in flames in February of 2024, and its owner has just been charged with deliberately setting the blaze for insurance money. 41-year-old Bryce Campbell was at the 140-year-old Lutsen Resort along the Lake Superior coast when the basement caught fire. Investigators couldn't ignore the timing, with the fire taking place at a time when the business was saddled with debt and on the verge of going under. Prior to the blaze, Campbell and his husband had exchanged text messages about the amount of money they owed, while the lodge's manager had warned that the business was unable to make its payroll that week. Campbell had stated several times to just burn it, which only furthered detectives' suspicions that the fire had been deliberately set, yet he adamantly denied intentionally burning the lodge. On Friday, federal authorities announced charges against Campbell, who continues to maintain his innocence against allegations of arson and insurance fraud. He was arrested in Michigan and is currently awaiting extradition to Minnesota. Number 2. Jose Gutierrez. 3 people are dead after a Las Vegas teenager rammed his car into vehicles that were idling at a red light while traveling at over 100 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. 19-year-old Jose Gutierrez is accused of deliberately stepping on the gas about 1/8 of a mile from the scene of the accident before barreling into an intersection. His pregnant girlfriend, 20-year-old Adeline Duran Rincon, was killed in the crash along with 38-year-old fellow motorist Edward Garcia. A third victim, 25-year-old Vanessa Vasquez, died on Thursday after spending several weeks fighting for her life. Gutierrez reportedly blamed the accident on a seizure, but he has never received medical treatment for epilepsy, and authorities don't buy his story. He faces 10 felony charges, including open murder, and additional charges could be forthcoming following the third victim's death. Prosecutors are accusing Gutierrez of trying to kill Duran Rincon, while the defense maintains that he was suffering from a medical emergency at the time of the crash. He remains held without bond and is due back in court later this week. Number 1. Bonnie Blue. A British adult film star who infamously slept with 1,000 men in 24 hours was arrested in Bali on Thursday for making illicit content, which violates Indonesia's morality laws. Bonnie Blue and 17 British and Australian male suspects between the ages of 19 and 40 were taken into custody following a raid on a studio where they were filming. Police seized ample evidence of adult activity, including cameras, contraceptives, performance-enhancing pills, lubricant, and more. Blue had reportedly been documenting her 18 and up exploits during her travels, resulting in a tip-off to police from a member of the public. 14 of the male suspects were released without charges on Friday, while the remaining 3 men and Blue remain under investigation.